Hello and welcome to this YouTube video. I'm very happy to have you here. Tonight I'm here to talk about the books that I can't wait to read. I've been on such a good roll with reading recently. I've been reading a lot and a lot of books that I really love, and I feel like for the first time I'm really figuring out what I really like to read and who I really like to read. This has allowed me to acquire a lot of books for my TBR. I feel like because I wasn't a really big reader when I was younger, I really only got into reading about 4 years ago. I felt like I had to catch up and like I had to read all of the classics. Especially as a beginner reader, that really wasn't what I wanted to read. But now I feel like I'm finally in a good groove, so let's get into it. Some of my books I actually have here with me, which is a great feat. Some of these books are coming in the post. Some of them I haven't bought yet but plan to buy soon, but some of them are here, so I will accept a round of applause anytime you feel. First on my list is actually my current read, but I'm only about 2 chapters in, so I'm gonna include it anyway. And that is Giovanni's Room by James Baldwin. I was reading this morning and I put something up on my Instagram story that said something like, I feel like I should be very afraid. I am very attached to the story. I'm very attached to the characters already. I already feel devastated. I love James Baldwin's writing style. This is my first James Baldwin book that I've read, and I definitely know that I'll be reading a lot more after this. I've heard nothing about this book other than that it is devastating and beautiful and devastatingly beautiful, so boy am I in for a ride. For anyone that doesn't know what Giovanni's Room entails, David, a young American in 1950s Paris, is waiting for his fiancée to return from vacation in Spain. But when he meets Giovanni, a handsome Italian barman, the two men are drawn into an intense affair. After 3 months, David's fiancée returns, and denying his true nature, David rejects Giovanni for a safe future as a married man. His decision eventually brings tragedy. Full of passion, regret, and longing, the story of a fated love triangle has become a landmark in gay writing, but its appeal is broader. James Baldwin caused outrage as a black author writing about white homosexuals, yet for him the issues of race, sexuality, and personal freedom were eternally intertwined. I cannot wait to read more of this book. I really want to make another video about the books I have been reading, because as I said, I've been reading a lot of books that I really love, so yeah, pray for me. I don't know. Next on my list I have here with me, and that is A Room of One's Own by Virginia Woolf. A Room of One's Own grew out of a lecture that Virginia Woolf had been invited to give at Girton College, Cambridge in 1928. Ranging over Jane Austen and Charlotte Bronte, and why neither of them could have written War and Peace, over the silent fate of Shakespeare's gifted and imaginary sister, over the effects of poverty and chastity on female creativity, she gives us one of the greatest feminist polemics of the century. I've heard about this book for years and I've wanted to read it for years. It is a very famous feminist text. From what I've heard from people who have read it, I'm sure I will be able to relate to a lot of what she says as a woman and as a creative. And next on my list isn't a specific text, but pretty much anything by Simone de Beauvoir. Pretty much whatever I can get my hands on first, secondhand, at the best price. But a couple of titles I've been looking out for: The Second Sex, The Woman Destroyed, and Memoirs of a Dutiful Daughter. I'll read a blurb from The Second Sex for anyone who isn't familiar with her writing. The Second Sex by Simone de Beauvoir is a foundational text in feminist philosophy that explores the historical and social construction of femininity and the oppression of women. De Beauvoir argues that women are not inherently inferior to men, but rather are treated as the other in a patriarchal society defined solely in opposition to men. The book analyzes how societal structures, myths, and cultural norms perpetuate this inequality, and it emphasizes the importance of women's freedom and self-determination. Next on my list, The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison, another author who I've been dying to read. The Bluest Eye is Toni Morrison's first novel, a book heralded for its richness of language and boldness of vision. Set in the author's girlhood hometown of Lorain, Ohio, it tells the story of a black 11-year-old Pecola Breedlove. Pecola prays for her eyes to turn blue so that she will be as beautiful and beloved as all the blonde, blue-eyed children in America. In the autumn of 1941, the year the marigolds in the Breedlove's garden do not bloom, Pecola's life does change in painful, devastating ways, with its vivid evocation of the fear and loneliness at the heart of a child's yearning and the tragedy of its fulfillment. The Bluest Eye remains one of Toni Morrison's most powerful, unforgettable novels and a significant work of American fiction. Next on my list I have the unabridged journals of Sylvia Plath / Johnny Panic and the Bible of Dreams, and pretty much all of Sylvia Plath's work. I read The Bell Jar a couple weeks ago and fell absolutely in love with it. I think it might be my new favorite book, and I have a very ferocious need to consume everything that Sylvia Plath ever wrote. Next on my list is Nostalgia Has Ruined My Life by Zara Butcher McGonigal. This is a book I started reading years ago and never finished, but I really want to get back to it because I remember absolutely loving it and being obsessed with her writing style. I have no idea why I didn't finish it. In Nostalgia Has Ruined My Life, an unnamed young woman in her late 20s navigates unemployment, boredom, depression, and chronic illness. In Nostalgia Has Ruined My Life, an unnamed young woman in her late 20s navigates unemployment, boredom, depression, and chronic illness. Her activities are banal: applying for jobs, looking up horoscopes, going on Tinder dates. I want to tell someone I love them, but there is no one to tell, she says. I want to pick blackberries on a farm and then die. She observes the ambiguities of social interactions, the absurd intimacies of sex, and the indignity of everyday events with a skepticism about the possibility of emotion or enlightenment. Things just unfold, and sometimes, like life, they don't get better. Next, I have Slouching Towards Bethlehem by Joan Didion. I want to read all of Joan Didion's work after reading The Year of Magical Thinking. I adored that book so much. Slouching Towards Bethlehem is the first non-fiction work by one of the most distinctive prose stylists of our era. Remains decades after its first publication the essential portrait of America, particularly California in the 60s. It focuses on such subjects as John Wayne and Howard Hughes growing up a girl in California, ruminating on the nature of good and evil in a Death Valley motel room, and especially the essence of San Francisco's Haight-Ashbury. The heart of the counterculture, it contains Didion's famous essay, Goodbye to All That. I do know that Joan Didion and other authors like Eve Babbitt's are kind of known for throwing in references to America, specifically LA, that a lot of people, if you haven't been to LA or live there, it will kind of go over your head. But I guess that's what you get when you're reading a book about living there. Even if half the book goes over my head, I'm sure that I will be completely entranced by Joan Didion's writing, so I can't wait to read that. And then I have The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. I thrifted this copy for like $2, which was really cool because I've been hearing so much about this book for the last couple years. It's seen as like a Bible among all kinds of artists. I know that it's some sort of week by week program for artists. I have been procrastinating picking up this book because I don't know if I'm the kind of person that could commit to a week by week program. Have you ever longed to be able to draw or paint, write or compose? With The Artist's Way, you can discover how to unlock your latent creativity and make your dreams a reality. The Artist's Way provides a 12-week course that guides you through the process of recovering your creative self. It dispels the "I'm not talented enough" conditioning that holds many people back and helps you to unleash your own inner artist. Its step-by-step approach enables you to start out on your own path to creativity, dissolve the barriers that are preventing your creative impulse from finding expression, use your rediscovered talents in whatever way you wish, learn that it is never too late to start fulfilling your dreams. The Artist's Way helps demystify the creative process by making it part of your daily life. It tackles your self-doubt, self-criticism, and worries about time, money, and the support to pursue your creative dream. It has already helped thousands of people to uncover their hidden talents. It can help you too. Well, the mentions of doubt, self-criticism, and worries about time and money definitely apply to me. I definitely should pick up this book and stop procrastinating. I think it'll help in my journey as an artist. And next on my list is M Train by Patti Smith. I read Just Kids maybe 2 years ago now, and of course, absolutely loved it. It's one of my favorite books. What is not to like about Patti Smith? I love her as a person. I love her work. I love everything about that woman. Just Kids was especially dear to my heart because obviously they're both artists and their entire love story revolves around bringing each other up as artists and believing in each other's work so intensely. And I think in a lot of ways it very much has inspired how I live my life as an artist. I've been dying to read more of her work. Anything she has written, I'll read. Another queer novel I've been dying to read, similarly to Giovanni's Room, Jeanette Winterson's Oranges Are Not the Only Fruit, which I believe is her first work. This is the story of Jeanette, adopted and brought up by her mother as one of God's elect. Zealous and passionate, she seems destined for life as a missionary, but then she falls for one of her converts. At 16, Jeanette decides to leave the church, her home and her family for the young women she loves. Innovative, punchy, and tender, Oranges Are Not the Only Fruit is a few days' ride into the bizarre outposts of religious excess and human obsession. And then I have Of Mice and Men by John Steinbeck. I tried reading East of Eden recently, which I think was maybe too big of a book, too big of a commitment to being my first John Steinbeck, like not knowing his writing style. I'm pretty sure this book is a lot shorter, as well as I've always been very fascinated by the story, hearing that it's so sad and has this devastating ending. But without being crucified, hopefully, I don't know if I have ridiculously high hopes because I had such raving reviews for East of Eden, and maybe I didn't give it the chance that I should have, but it was putting me in such a slump, which was so scary to me because I've been on such a good roll that I just kind of neglected it. I found it really boring. But if you have read the book and enjoyed it and believe that I should give it another try because it is as magnificent as people say it is, let me know, and let me know if there's like a specific point in the book that I should get to where it gets good. Because in my personal opinion, if the beginning is supposed to be good, I think it's just not my taste per se. But maybe I'm biased because it was set in a period that I'm just not very interested in. So please don't hate me if it's like one of your favorite books. I was really excited to read it but let me know if I should try again. And then I have Agua Viva by Clarice Lispector, another book that I have heard so much about and heard such raving reviews about. Lispector at her most philosophically radical, a meditation on the nature of life and time. Agua Viva shows Lispector discovering a new means of writing about herself, more deeply transforming her individual experience into a universal poetry. In a body of work as emotionally powerful, formally innovative, and philosophically profound as Clarice Lispector's Agua Viva stands out as a particular triumph. And then next I have 1984 by George Orwell, as well as Animal Farm. I was one of the only people who did not have to read either of these books in school, so I've always felt a little left out of the club. Specifically, it's been on my list for the last few months because I really want to read the classic dystopian novels. So that also includes We, which I believe was written before 1984 and was an inspiration for George Orwell to write that book. Yeah, so it was written in 1920 to 1921. And I actually have a copy of this book. It was just something I grabbed when I was thrifting and had no idea that it was a text that inspired 1984. But for anyone else like me who didn't read this book in high school, this is the blurb. A masterpiece of rebellion and imprisonment where war is peace, freedom is slavery, and Big Brother is watching. Thought police, Big Brother, Orwellian, these words have entered our vocabulary because of George Orwell's classic dystopian novel 1984. The story of one man's nightmare odyssey as he pursues a forbidden love affair through a world ruled by warring states and a powerful structure that controls not only information but also individual thought and memory. 1984 is a prophetic, haunting tale more relevant than ever before. It exposes the worst crimes imaginable, the destruction of truth, freedom, and individuality. Getting to the final books on my list, I have I Who Have Never Known Men by Jacqueline Hartman. Deep underground, 40 women live imprisoned in a cage. Watched over by guards, the women have no memory of how they got there, no notion of time, and only a vague recollection of their lives before. As the burn of electric light merges a day into night and numberless years pass, a young girl, the 40th prisoner, sits alone and outcast in the corner. Soon she will show herself to be the key to the others' escape and survival in a strange world that awaits them above ground. Informed by her background as a psychoanalyst and her youth in exile, I Who Have Never Known Men is a haunting, heartbreaking, post-apocalyptic novel of female friendship and intimacy, and the lengths people will go to maintain their humanity in the face of devastation. I've been hearing a ton about this book recently, and I've been very intrigued by it because pretty much everything dystopian, post-apocalyptic has been very fascinating to me. Specifically, how it would affect men and women and the fight for power and autonomy in a broken world. All of it has been very interesting to me. And second last on my list is Inferno. I started reading this book a couple years ago when I was first getting into reading. Like I said, I felt like I had to catch up and read all of the crazy big classics, which did not work out. But I've been very much wanting to pick this up again because I like to think that I've grown as a reader and I could sit with a big book like this and I would have the patience to absorb it all. But this book has also been on my mind because my sister and I recently watched The Da Vinci Code and Inferno, based of course on Dan Brown's very famous books. Tom Hanks makes knowing a lot about Da Vinci and this book look very fun and interesting. So aside from reading everything I can find about Da Vinci, that is the real reason why I want to read this book. And last on my list I have Bunny by Mona Awad, another book that I picked up years ago and read about halfway through but never finished, and also apparently water damaged, which is fun. But I've always wanted to pick this book back up and finish it because it's unlike anything I've ever read before. The characters are really interesting, the plot's really interesting. Samantha Heather Mackey is an outsider in her small, highly selective MFA program at Warren University. In fact, she is utterly repelled by the rest of her fiction writing cohort, a clique of unbearably twee rich girls who call each other Bunny. But then the bunnies issue her with an invitation and Samantha finds herself inexplicably drawn to their front door, across the threshold and down the rabbit hole. Blending sharp satire with fairy tale horror, Bunny is a spellbinding trip of a novel from one of fiction's most original voices. I remember the first time I read this book, it created a very powerful visual world in my head. Like I felt like I could see the character so clearly, and I love the aesthetic that it conjures up when you're reading it. I love that there's an entire book about an obsessive cult of twee girls. That is my entire list. These are most of the books that I'm very excited to read. Of course, there are many more that I haven't mentioned. I sincerely hope you've enjoyed watching this video. If you did, you can give it a thumbs up. You can subscribe to see more from me. I would like to say soon, but hopefully very soon. But however long it is until we meet again on this platform. You can follow me and my art and photography and everything I'm doing on TikTok, Instagram, Pinterest, whatever your heart desires, and I will see you in my next video.